This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate. This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate. This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Este es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
This is the California State Senate.
Esta es el Senado Estatal de California.
This is the California State Senate.
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 Morning, everyone. We're going to try and start this hearing. Thank you very much for attending a hearing. I'm Fran Pavley. I'm a state senator, and I chair the Natural Resources and Water Committee for the State Senate. And yesterday, I was at Scripps talking about climate change and impacts, and as luck would have it, here I am. Oh, and here's Bob Hertzberg. Bob, we have a seat for you. Everyone give it up for State Senator Bob Hertzberg. Also known as Mr. El Nino in the State Senate in an interesting way. So we're here today talking about El Nino. Is it real? Yes. And what will be the impacts particularly to the San Fernando Valley and the outlying regions. So thank you very much for attending. I thought I'd keep my comments relatively brief because we have a great panel of experts on the subject, and then we'll open it up at the end of the session for audience comments or questions. So with that, let me also recognize, besides Senator Hertzberg, a few other representatives from other offices that represent part of the LA area. We have from Council Member Ryu's office, Alice Roth and David Park. Would you raise your hands, please, if you're here? Ryu's office, I know I met someone from Ryu's office. Maybe they're out grabbing a bite to eat. From State Senator Tony Mendoza's office, Saeed Ali. I talked to him today. There he is in the back. Did I mispronounce your name? He used to work for Senator Alarcon, so he volunteered to drive from Venice all the way back to Van Nuys. So welcome home. With Supervisor Kuehl's office, Angelica Ayala. She's in the back. Thank you very much for coming. Supervisor Kuehl represents a lot of this district. And Marco Santana with the office of Senator Hertzberg. And he's right there. So we have a great turnout, a great subject. I joked with people that I think most of the cameras are here not because of me. It's probably the subject matter of El Nino. So that's why we're going to dispense with a lot of opening comments. Well, we've already seen some parts of El Nino come through with the closure of Highway 5 suddenly and dramatically after a few inches of rain in a very short period of time. We're seeing the impacts of climate change with more intense weather patterns. This could be part of the reason for El Nino, but let's get to the main part of our function. The hearing will begin with a presentation by William Patzert, often called the prophet of California climate. I looked at his background, PhD in oceanography from University of Hawaii. Scripps background, an oceanographer there at the Scripps Institute, where I was on a panel yesterday, and in the past several years at the California Institute of Technology, NASA, at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He's lots of times called Mr. El Nino. He will be speaking first, our keynote speaker. He will be followed by Richard Liefeld, Chief of Engineering for the LA District of the Los Angeles Army Corps of Engineers. If you'd raise your hand, sir. Thank you very much for coming. Solomon Miranda with the Southern Regional National Flood Insurance Program. He's a coordinator with the state for the Department of Water Resources. Thank you for coming on down from Sacramento, correct? Local, even better. And then, if you could grab that, Bob. Thank you. Gary Hildebrand, Deputy Director of the Water Resources for the LA County Department of Public Works. He's been there for over 30 years, expert on flood control issues. And James Featherstone, General Manager, City of Los Angeles Emergency Management Department. He is on his way. And as I said, we will go through our speakers. They'll be speaking 10 to 15 minutes each. Questions by Senator Hertzberg or myself, and then followed by any public comments or questions. So the hearing is to provide information to the public and local officials on what we can expect the end of this year and mostly next year. Before we start, Senator Hertzberg, how about a few words? He says no, so let's go ahead. Mr. El Nino, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Senator, and I wanted to thank both the senators. These are two of my favorite senators here, all right? And thank you for showing up this morning. Now, we live in interesting times. For the last 15 years here in California, we've had one of the most punishing droughts that California has ever experienced, probably the most. And of course, during this drought over the last 9 months, we've had a building El Nino in the equatorial Pacific, and that always has big implications for California. And so here comes your XXL El Nino. And so my reaction to all this is, yikes, you know, it's definitely weather and climate whiplash. Now, this is where a Mac from JPL meets a PC from the senator's office. Let's see how this works out. The last 4 years here in Southern California and Los Angeles have been the driest 4 consecutive years in LA's history. And that record goes back to the 1870s. And so our normal rainfall in downtown LA is about 15 inches a year. And for the last 4 years, we've averaged 7.5 inches. And so that's punishing. And we think of the last 4 years. But actually, since the last big El Nino, this drought has really been on and off for the last 15 years. And if you look at the level in Lake Mead, it's the barometer for the drought. The lake level has continuously gone down for the past 15 years, as well as the great reservoirs in Northern California. So this drought is more than 4 years. Now, just as we're on our knees with this drought, all of a sudden, we're talking El Nino, all right, which some people think of as, the drought buster, the great wet hope. So let's take a little look at what El Nino really is. Okay, this is where. Okay, so this El Nino has often been called the Godzilla El Nino. And so here you see it coming ashore, tramping across Southern California, causing devastation and havoc. Okay, now I'm here to tell you that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, all right? El Nino has been overhyped, and if we get prepared, there's a lot we can do to essentially deaden the blow from El Nino. Now, I'm going to show you, it's not going to work. Okay, I'll skip my animation. But at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, we've been monitoring this El Nino from space. And we've been monitoring for 23 years these El Ninos. And we've had 2 really large El Ninos in the past century. And that was the great winter of 82-83 and the winter of 97-98. And here you see a comparison. As it stands today, you see October 22nd, 2015, and October 23rd, 1997. Now, which one of those is bigger? Come on, Demetrio, tell me. Today's shot, exactly. So this El Nino is actually larger, it's more intense than the previous 2 large El Ninos of 82-83. All right, so don't take it for granted. Now, the big question is this El Nino going to hose us this winter? All right? Absolutely. All right? All right, now, if I'm wrong here, of course, I'm going to have to go into witness protection program. All right? All right? But if you remember the last 2 big El Ninos, rather than our normal 15 inches in L.A., Both of those El Ninos delivered over 31 inches. And this is the way it works. There's a subtropical jet stream that normally feeds water into Central America and gives us the great rainforest, Guatemala, Ecuador, feeds the Panama Canal. Well, it shifts to the north. And so across the southern tier of the United States, we have a jet stream that carries, it's like a caravan of storms, usually starts in January and runs through February, March, and often into April, sometimes into May. And northern tier of the United States, the polar jet stream, which was so punishing to the Midwest and the Northeast over the past few winters, tends to weaken and move farther north. So the northern tier of the United States tends to be mild, warmer, all the way into central and southern Canada, whereas the southern tier of the United States, from Southern California into Texas, and especially into Florida, definitely gets a good hosing. Now, this is average LA rainfall. Goes back 70 years, 1945. It's interesting to look at. You can see the average is about 15 inches a year. Every once in a while, you'll get these very, very, very wet winters. You know, the wettest winter we ever had was 2004, 2005. The rain year starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th. But you'll also note in 1982 and 83 and in 97, 98, we got more than double our rainfall. But when you look at that chart, and of course we can have as little as 4 inches a year. When you look at that chart, it's interesting because 7 of 10 years are below average. So when I do my long-range forecast and somebody asks me what's the rainfall going to be next year, what do you think I tell them? I'm telling them no, averages never happens. If you look at that chart, it's interesting, all right? There is no normal year, all right? It's either wet or dry. And so 7 out of 10 years are drier than average. So you wish you had those odds at Vegas, all right? Yeah, I always say normal is a cycle on a washing machine, all right? Now, you can see that these large El Ninos can double our rainfall. And really, the statistics on this are not that good. We only really have 2 really large events, but they were eerily similar in the way they behaved. And so this is the basis for really our forecast. Now, what does El Nino look like? Now, the red line, as you see, runs from July to June. That's a rain year. The red line is the average or normal that the senator mentioned. That's the one that doesn't exist. Now, look at the blue line. That was 82, 83. And you notice the big months were January and March. And the rainfall was as much as 6 to 8 inches for the month, which is 2 to 3 to 4 times larger than normal. But the spectacular year was 98. February of 1998, you notice that we had 13.7 inches of rain in 1 month, where the normal is a little over 3 inches. So that's a lot of rain. So that looks a little scary, all right? But this is what it actually looked like, the rain during that month. This is February 1998. Notice, there are no superstorms. There are 4 big storms where in a 24-hour period you might have had 1 inch or 1.5 inches of rain. And there are a couple of small storms. But there are no 10-inch storms. So the interesting thing about El Nino, it comes at you as more frequent storms, but not bigger storms. And so that's definitely the good news. And so this is an event that you can definitely handle. We've had events in Southern California where in a 24-hour period we had 10 inches of rain. And that was pretty spectacular. But that's not El Nino's MO. All right? We actually had 14 dry days and 14 wet days with, 4 modest storms, a lot like we saw actually a couple of weeks ago, all right, and 2 small storms, all right? So they tend to be steady, Los Niños rains, all right? Not spectacular, all right? As much as the media likes to make it spectacular, all right? Now, here was a spectacular storm. This was March 2nd, 1938. Interesting event. We had 10 inches of rain in one day, all right? The LA River, when it was still a river, all right, everything south of downtown LA flooded on 3 miles on both sides of the river, all right? What today is Irvine was under 6 feet of water, all right? So what did we do because of that event? We turned the LA River into what? Right, a flood control channel, all right? So now today it's 51 miles of concrete, all right, from the San Fernando Valley here all the way down to Long Beach, which was a good idea, actually, all right? Because remember, there's only one thing more important than water in California, and what's that? Real estate. All right. So that's an interesting dilemma here. Now everybody complains about the LA River, all right? Now myself, I like it. You know, I'm a big fan of the LA River. It's an engineering masterpiece. The guys who designed that were brilliant, you know? It's efficient, all right? It does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is move water out of the LA basin into the ocean, all right? All right. So there's another point here. That was not an El Nino rain, all right? All right, which is the good news, all right? Now, El Nino, when you look at the water budget of Southern California, a big El Nino only happens every 15 or 20 years. So the total amount of water we get in Southern California from El Nino is only 7%. So we're making an awful big deal out of only 7% of our rainfall, all right? These are the big events, things like atmospheric river events, which really supply about 70% of our rainfall. And those can be 10 inches, they can be 4 inches, they can be 6 inches, and they're the most punishing. A good example were the storms of 2010 that filled up the Arroyo Seco with sediment. All right? All right. So there's good news and there's bad news. Is that on the large scale, on the regional scale, we invested billions of dollars and trillions of tons of concrete to prevent regional flooding. So when we have an El Nino or a big storm, we don't have regional flooding. We have local flooding, all right, which is good news, all right? Because remember, the mountains, the foothills, and everything else in Southern California is floodplain. So most of us are living on a floodplain, right? So our problems really are local. So when we look ahead to big rainstorms, the problems are really local. They're below the burn areas, all right? There's the usual suspects where people got zoning permits where they shouldn't have, all right? All right. It's the freeways, all right, which people should stay off of in a big rain. So the problems and the things you really have to prepare for are local things, all right? Of course, here's the downside. The Heal the Bay people have had all these A report cards for their beaches over the last decade, all right? That's 51 miles of concrete connected to 2,600 miles of storm sewers into the LA River, as well as the San Gabriel and the Santa Ana River, all right? And so those beaches definitely are going to be loaded up with garbage and who knows what. So I'm nearing the end here. Now, this big El Nino, it'll provide, you know, some sweet relief from all this drought, and it'll be a down payment on drought. Hopefully, not just in Southern California. I'm kind of hoping, the thing I'm really hoping for, what really matters, is that we get huge snowpack on the Colorado River watershed. So Lake Mead starts filling up again, as well as the northern Sierras. Because remember, we import 70% of our water normally. So who cares if it rains in LA? Fill up Lake Mead and fill up Lake Oroville. All right? Of course, we have to, you know, survive the floods and mudslides and general havoc of El Nino, which will provide, you know, full employment for the media. All right? But the drought busters are really, it took us a long time to get into this drought. I said 15 years. So it's a decade or more of above normal rainfall and especially snowpack that get you out of the drought. So you crawl into the drought and you creep out of it. There's no quick fix. And I make a pitch here is that in 1950, there were only 5 million of us in Southern California. Now there's 20 million, all right? And so part of the drought is us. There's just more demand for water. We're living more affluently, all right? Agriculture grew where it shouldn't have, all right? There's been a lot of agricultural growth in Southern California. And so there's just more demands on the water. So don't lose your conservation habits that you've developed here over the last couple of years. That's not a temporary habit. That's a new lifestyle. All right. Now, 97, 98 was, there was a lot of damage, There was death, there was chaos, all right? And I think what I'm trying to tell you here this morning, when you look at how El Nino storms occur, and all the agencies that are jumped up now to deal and preparing for this particular event, all right? If we get prepared and people, our citizens, use a little common sense, this is not going to be as bad as advertised. Okay, Senator, everybody, that's it. Thank you.
This will be the time Senator Hertzberg and I will ask you a question or two, and then we're going to go on to the people who are going to talk about how do we prepare and what impacts we will see locally. But let me turn this over to Senator Hertzberg to see what kind of question he wants to ask.
Yeah, I just want to apologize. I have to go to a meeting in Orange County to talk about taxes so we can figure out how to pay for all this stuff that we're going to need to pay for. I just wanted to make one point. I think you made it, but I want to make it clear a little bit, I think, and if I'm wrong, that if you have this Southern California downpour, there's this assumption that we're all of a sudden going to recharge the groundwater and have a lot of local water is not going to happen. That you're actually just going to, because of all the systems and because of the ground is hard because it hasn't had water, it's just going to race off into the ocean, and that the real solution, if there's anything in the longer term, as you suggested, is the snowpack and refilling the reservoirs. Is that a fair statement?
Mr. Hildebrand is really the expert. Go ahead. Why don't you take that one?
Well, we rely locally on about a third of the groundwater basins for our supply. Even though we import up to 70%, there still is a local component. That's historically been what we've utilized. And when I get to my presentation, I'm going to touch more on how that local supply piece is handled, how we manage, how we recharge our basins. And even though there's been urbanization, we're still able to successfully recharge our groundwater basins and provide that supply.
Just one follow-up on that. But just so I understand from our meetings earlier, talking about the hearings that we had with Senator Pavley in Sacramento, most of that water is recharged because of the successful stormwater capture in the San Gabriel Valley and a lot less of it in the San Fernando Valley. Is that fair to say?
When you look across the county, the infrastructure that the flood control district has, our groundwater recharge basins, we have more of them in the San Gabriel Valley. And just because of circumstances, it sort of ended up in that fashion over the years. But with the infrastructure we have now in place, typically we're able to capture up to 90% of the stormwater and use that to recharge our groundwater basins.
But that I know you said that, but that's what's successful in the San Gabriel Valley, where you've adjudicated the basin, right, and you've cleaned up your various catch basins and worked out deals with the federal government. In the San Fernando Valley, it's about 13% that's captured. Is that fair to say?
Right. With the facilities there, we're only about 13, 15%, and it's something that we're working on with the city of LA to expand opportunities to capture more stormwater locally.
And I think that was the point Senator Hertzberg and I were trying to make is we understand the San Fernando Valley, if we can capture and reuse treated wastewater or stormwater to clean up the groundwater basin in the northeast San Fernando Valley, that could provide up to 20% of the city of Los Angeles' water needs. That would become us more sustainable and resilient. So my follow-up question to Bill is, we've heard El Nino's warmer storms. Have you done some climate modeling relating to potential for more snow in the Sierras? We are driven in that so much of our water supply is imported based on Sierra or Rocky Mountain snowpack. So what are your predictions?
Well, that's an excellent question. When we look back over the past century, the snowpack in the Sierras and the Rockies, it arrives later, it leaves sooner, because we're living in a warmer world. If you look at the average winter temperature in California, December, January, and February over the last century, It's 2.5 degrees warmer in California than it used to be. And so looking out to the future is that we're going to be less dependent on snowpack for our water supply, and we're going to have to develop, like Mr. Hildebrand said, more groundwater storage and capture, which means we're going to have to clean up those groundwater basins. About 50% of them are polluted, all right? And so rather than be dependent on imported water, we're going to have to be more dependent on local storm capture water. So that's your future.
That's what we're working on, so thank you for that. And my last question to you, since you have such a great background in oceanography, University of Hawaii and at Scripps, we have some people in the room that are from the coastal side of my district, out in Malibu in particular. Could you talk about a little bit of the interaction between an El Nino year, sea level rise, tides, other kinds of challenges they're likely to see that might be on the upper side of normal?
Well, I guess it's time for me to make a confession. I spent the 60s and the 70s surfing in Hawaii, you know? And one of the things I can say, one of the nice things I can say about El Nino in 82 and 97, if there are any surfers out there, they're epic years for surfing, all right? We get great waves. But the downside of that is the world is warming. All that warmth is being absorbed in the ocean. Sea levels have risen 8 inches in the last century and a half. And so the unequivocal proof of global warming, of course, is smaller beaches. All right, smaller beaches, seawalls, Malibu, big waves. All right, so some of the more spectacular footage from this El Nino will be along our coast. If you remember the footage from the winter of 98 and the winter of 82, Pacifica, you know, people in Malibu, you know, having water in their living room. And so get ready down in Malibu and all along the Orange County coast for a big battering from El Nino.
All right. Thank you for that. And we are starting for the first time to measure and manage our groundwater. We have 515 basins in California, 125 are in severe overdraft. And for the first time, the politics of managing groundwater basins are a real challenge in this state, because historically, groundwater is a property right in our state constitution. So that's part of the solution. So an El Nino year will maybe start us on the way to replenishing that groundwater supply, but we've got to manage it and hope for many more rainy years to come. So if you can help us make sure we have more rain in the future,
Well,
we welcome you back.
I would just add to that, a week and a half ago, I was up at Lake Oroville on a tour, and of course it's frightening. It's very, very low. It's our largest reservoir in the state. But then we all got on the bus and started going down the Feather River, and I looked to my right and I looked to my left, and I never saw so much rice and almonds being grown up there. All right, so a part of the water problem in California is a more equitable distribution of water between the urban and suburban populations and the farmers. It's my little thing.
And that's not political at all. So we'll take. Okay. Before we go on to our second speaker, I told you after we listen to all 5 of these gentlemen, we'll be having public comment period. There is a sign-up sheet at the back of the room, but because I don't want anyone to get up, Lauren will my district director, Lauren, if you'd raise your hand, will come around. If you see her with a clipboard and you want to sign up to ask a quick question at the end or make a comment at the end of these presentations, just she'll pass you the clipboard and you write your name down. So I'm going to ignore the hands, but she won't. Okay. The second speaker is from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's Richard Liefeld. He's with the Engineering Division in the L.A. District. He's been the Chief of Engineering Division at the L.A. District of the Army Corps since June 2009. He leads the 120-person engineering division in the engineering and design of solutions to water resource issues like flooding, ecosystem degradation, and navigation improvements. He was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, the Show Me State, and has worked for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers since 1974. Thank you very much for your attendance, and he's going to talk a little bit about what is the Army Corps of Engineers, why are they in Los Angeles, and your major roles here, and what it has to do with El Nino. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for inviting me today. A brief introduction of what is the Army Corps of Engineers, what's our role in responsibilities in flood risk management, and talk about four things: operation and maintenance of our dams and our flood control channels, our levee safety program, emergency operations, and our regulatory program. And then finally, are we ready for El Nino? So first, a brief introduction to the Corps of Engineers. You can see on this busy slide that the Corps has many mission areas, military programs. We manage a lot of real estate. We do research and development, interagency support, homeland security support, and civil works. And today I'm going to talk primarily about our civil works program with respect to flood risk management. So these are the various civil works missions that the Corps of Engineers has, including navigation, ecosystem restoration, hydropower, water supply, recreation, but the ones that apply to the El Nino primarily, although not completely, is flood risk management, regulatory, and our disaster preparedness and response program. The Corps of Engineers is about 32,000 civilians in this country and overseas, and we have districts in the continental United States that are centered primarily around metropolitan areas and along the coasts and our nation's waterways. Our division boundaries are based on major watersheds in the country. Our South Pacific Division is comprised of 4 districts located in Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Albuquerque. California is served by 3 of the 4 districts in the South Pacific Division. And the Los Angeles district, where I work, has an area of responsibility that covers portions of 3 southwestern states and many major cities, metropolitan cities in the southern United States, southwest United States. So next I'm going to talk about the operation and maintenance of dams and flood control channels that we own and operate. Los Angeles County drainage area is a project that was authorized by Congress, and we constructed over 200 miles of improved channels, 6 major detention basins, and you can see here that the flood works that were constructed as part of this project. The black shaded or colored channels were turned over to our local sponsor, Los Angeles County Flood Control District, to operate and maintain, and the red portion of the channels is still maintained by the Corps of Engineers. The yellow represents 4 major flood control reservoirs in LA County: Sepulveda Dam, Hanson Dam, Santa Fe Dam, and Whittier Narrows Dam. I wanted to point out with this graph, and maybe it's a little complicated, but it shows on the left the population increase, and on the bottom it shows the years. And you can see that when we built our first project in 1938, there were about 2.5 million people living in Los Angeles County. We completed our last project in 1957, and there were approximately 5.4 million people in Los Angeles County. And since then, the population has increased by another 6.5 million people since completing our flood control project. So here's a graphical demonstration of what happened. Here's a picture taken in the 30s in the Whittier Narrows location of the county, where before the dam, the Whittier Narrows Dam was constructed. You can see the alignment of the dam in that orange line there. And you can see most of the property is not developed, and it looks like it's perhaps farming downstream of the Whittier Narrows location. Now here's a more up-to-date version of the photograph. The dam has been constructed, and almost all of the area downstream of the dam has been developed. So this urbanization has changed our watershed significantly since we built our flood control system. And from the popular Mamas and Papas song, it seems it never rains in Southern California. And so when you look and see our flood control channels, you see them like this photograph here, usually 99% of the time or so, they're empty. But it can rain, and it does rain, and sometimes significantly, and these channels fill up quickly. And they're designed as Mr. Patzert was describing, they're designed to move the water very quickly to the ocean. And because it does, the water is high velocity flow. It's very dangerous. No one should ever think that would be something they should try to ride their kayak or something like that during those flood events. It's very dangerous. Also, the Corps of Engineers has constructed several flood control projects in the Santa Ana River Basin in Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. This is a very large, in fact, it's the largest watershed in Southern California, the Santa Ana River Basin. And we've constructed 5 different projects that we still operate, and we also constructed Seven Oaks Dam, which we turned over to San Bernardino County for operation. Public response preparedness is a major part of our flood risk management program. It's a shared responsibility between federal, state, and local agencies. Public response preparedness, including community awareness, evacuation planning, and flood warning, is a very important part of our preparations for El Nino. Next, I want to talk about our levee safety program. The levee safety program was implemented in November 2000, soon after the Hurricane Katrina catastrophe. It applies to Corps of Engineers owned levees, levees that were constructed and turned over to the local sponsors for operation, and other non-federal levees that were enrolled in our rehabilitation program. We have established a national levee database, and we've established a tiered inspection program for all levees in the levee safety program. The mission of the levee safety program is to assess the integrity and viability of our levees and recommend actions to assure that levee systems do not present unacceptable risk to the public, property, and the environment. The National Levee Database was authorized by the Water Resources Act of 2007, and it called for a comprehensive database of all of our nation's levees. The NLD is an up-to-date information source that allows visualization and search capability on the location and condition of our levees nationwide. You can retrieve reports on levees in the NLD if you provide your zip code. It'll tell you the condition of levees in your area. Currently, the NLD includes detailed information on more than 2,156 miles of levee systems in California that are associated with the Corps program, and you can see the website there at the bottom of the page. The National Levee Database provides information on inspections, periodic inspections and routine inspections, risks assessments, special inspections, rehabilitation, repair of levees, and FEMA's midterm levee inventory and other sources of information. In the last 5 years, the Corps of Engineers has inspected every levee we've ever constructed. We've identified deficiencies that need monitoring or immediate repair. We've determined the eligibility for federal rehabilitation. We've determined if the levee is being properly operated and maintained, and we've determined if the local sponsor is in compliance with the project's operations and maintenance manual. So these inspections inform us on how best to ensure our levees are doing the best job they can and where the most risk is with our levee system. Next, I want to talk about our emergency operations program. Our emergency operations program works with other state and local government agencies, and it provides disaster preparedness and response services, advanced planning, and it's designed to reduce the amount of damage caused by a pending disaster. We're ready and prepared to respond to natural and man-made disasters. It's not just the local district in my office who would respond. We would mobilize folks from the Corps of Engineers from all over the country, like we did after the Northridge earthquake, to respond to the local crisis. In any disaster, our top priorities are support the immediate life-saving and life-safety emergency response activities and sustain lives with critical commodities temporary emergency power, and other needs. We initiate recovery efforts by addressing and restoring critical infrastructure. The kinds of assistance we can provide are advanced measures prior to the disaster, flood fighting during a disaster, post-flood response, emergency water, oftentimes after a flood event, water supplies. You would not think water was a problem after a flood, but it can be, and flood control works rehabilitation. We also operate a regulatory program, and per the Clean Water Act, the Corps is in coordination with other agencies, performs a regulatory function, processing permit applications for specific work in certain streams, rivers, and wetlands. Related flood risk management work may include sediment removal and bank stabilization. We use pre-established expedited processing procedures for emergency situations. Project circumstances must meet certain criteria. Pre-storm season outreach has included educating the public and agencies about our permit processes and who to contact if the need arises. We're updating training for internal staff as well. On 21 October, we organized a meeting between sister federal and state agencies involved in permitting to coordinate pre- and post-storm response. We've seen an uptick in work due to storm preparation, especially from county flood control agencies, and we are prioritizing that work to the extent possible. And here's our points of contact if any agencies need to get a hold of us for our regulatory program preparations. So are we ready for El Nino? And my office has established several different activities to improve communications and coordinations with other agencies. We've worked to maintain our levees and channels and our dams. We've established many emergency response teams and conducted training and preparation for these teams. But the Corps of Engineers has been working with California since the late 1800s to develop infrastructure that will reduce the risk of flooding in many parts of California. Our projects were generally designed and constructed for large flood events, although urbanization has changed the watersheds we serve. We are making preparations to be ready for the flood season and flood threat. However, even large flood management projects can be exceeded. Flood risk management is a shared responsibility, and public response preparedness by local communities is an important part of the flood risk management program. We have a local website that anyone can access to see the status of our reservoirs. We have rain gauges and stream gauges throughout our Lacta and Santa Ana systems, and people can access this website and get the information in real time. There are other internet links for further information about the Corps of Engineers Flood Risk Management Program, our levee safety program, and you see the website for the National Levee Database. And that concludes my presentation.
Informative presentation, and I should like to note for either people listening or on a web stream or in the audience today, it is being formally taped. This is a formal public hearing. There will be records kept of the testimony today. You can also go to my website, Senator Fran Pavley's website, and there will be a link to this tape of this proceeding, and also it's live on YouTube. We have all the direct contact information, so feel free to contact my staff or go to my website if you need some additional information and you didn't have the opportunity to scroll down all the different websites. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just had one question. I want to get on to the next speaker. When you talked about levees, I automatically think of the Delta area in Sacramento, and of course, any catastrophe affecting the levees, whether it's flooding or earthquakes or ever, could cause not only a lot of property damage, but dramatically affect the water supply for Central California agricultural and Southern California area. So levees, am I correct in assuming you were mostly focusing on that? And just to let the public know that when the levees crumble, we lost a court case that makes us, as a state on the state levee system, financially responsible for replacing those levees. It was a court decision several years ago called the paternal decision. So my question to you is, it's the levees mostly Northern California, and if that is so, if that's a correct assumption, what particular water bodies does the Army Corps have jurisdiction over in the greater Los Angeles area? I know the LA River. Anything else?
So we do have flood control channels and channel improvements and levees that we've constructed on the Santa Ana River and San Antonio Creek in the Santa Ana River Basin. The levees primarily on the Santa Ana River were turned over to Orange County for operation and maintenance. And but we conduct periodic inspections every 5 years to ensure that the levees are properly maintained. And like you say, we do maintain levees on the LA River and Ballona Creek as well.
Ballona Creek and the LA River,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
locally. The last comment or question. A lot of people have asked me, we have a lot of reservoirs all over the state, some owned by the federal government, some by the counties. We know a lot of sediment has been piled up and allowed to accumulate, reducing the amount of water capacity in those reservoirs by 25 to 50% over the years. Is that something that can be cleaned up in order to expand capacity so when it rains, we can do a better job at capturing it? And if not, why not?
Well, the answer is yes, it can be. Of course, the solution requires funding, which is normally the issue we face. But as sediment builds up in the bottom of the reservoir, it reduces the storage capacity available for water conservation. The core reservoirs were designed with a sediment storage space assumed at the beginning when the project was constructed. And so during the life of the project, that space is being filled up. So it's not reducing the flood control potential and capacity, but it does reduce the potential water conservation capacity in our dams. And any acre foot of sediment removed is one more acre foot of water that can be saved. And primarily the problem there is funding.
And it might be less expensive than building a new reservoir, I guess is my ending comment on that. And maybe when we get to the other speakers locally, if they have a comment on sediment removal, I would welcome that. So let's go on to our next presenter, Solomon Miranda. He's with the State Department of Water Resources of the state of California, the Division of Integrated Regional Water Management in the Southern Region. He's a licensed civil engineer and is the state's National Flood Insurance Coordinator for Southern California. He got his master's and bachelor's degree at California State University in Los Angeles, so you know the area well. Thank you very much. We look forward to your comments.
Thank you, and good morning to all. I would like to, on behalf of the California Department of Water Resources, I would like to thank Senator Pavley and the committee for inviting us to this hearing and to participate in the discussions of what the department's role is in flood emergencies. Again, I'm Solomon Miranda. I'm also the coordinator for the Silver Jackets program for the region, and my territory includes 11 counties with encompasses about 225 communities in Southern California. As we just heard from Bill, El Nino, there's a high probability that El Nino is going to happen this year. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center has forecasted that above normal precipitation is expected in Southern California. However, it's important for us to point out that we are in extreme drought conditions, and there's more likely than not that the drought will still remain, even though we received significant rain this winter. In addition, the forecast also includes above normal high temperatures in California, which affects the amount of snowpack that we might receive this year. And as many of you know, the snowpack is actually a very valuable water supply, especially in the late spring months and the summer months in California. Catastrophic flooding happens during droughts. I think we already begun to witness this deadly combination, especially here in the Southland, especially after the wildfires driven by these dry conditions. Flooding occurred after the Station Fire in 2009, after the Colby Fire in 2014, And more recently, after the 2013 powerhouse fire that resulted in a flash flood just a couple weeks ago in the Lake Elizabeth and Lake Hughes area, for which a local state of emergency was declared just last week. The reality is that Southern California is exposed to flooding due to its topography, its hydrology, and climate. We are exposed in Southern California to coastal flooding, tsunamis due to earthquakes, flash floods, alluvial fans, flooding, and even stormwater and riverine flooding as well. The 2013 California Flood Future Report, which was prepared between DWR and the Corps of Engineers, found that 1 in 5 Californians live in the floodplains, and many billions of dollars are exposed, and assets are exposed to flooding. Understanding that floods can happen any year, and as the lead agency for flood fight assistance in the state, DWR responds to emergencies using the Standardized Emergency Management System, or SIMS, where all levels of government share the responsibility for flood fights. Whenever an event happens, the flood fight starts at the local level. When they maximize their capacity, the state will join in the flood fight. The DWR's Division of Flood Management mission is to protect loss of life and to decrease the amount of property damage caused by floods. DWR's Flood Operations Center is responsible to manage the flood response emergency in the department. The FOC prepares year-round, not just only in El Nino years, but every year, and is a central point for gathering, analyzing, and disseminating information to our local, state, and federal partners and other agencies as well. As far as sharing this information, California DWR manages the California Data Exchange Center, which is a central focal point for a database that stores, processes, and exchange real-time hydrologic information throughout the state with other partners. The data collected by CDECT is not only used by flood emergency responders, but is also used by water purveyors and reservoir operators throughout the state. In addition, the Flood Operations Center holds weather hydrology briefings every year with other partners to monitor river levels, to issue high water notifications to our local agencies and flood responders, to declare alerts, and to declare flood mobilization throughout the state, which activates DWR's incident command teams. In an effort to minimize the catastrophic effects of flooding, every year DWR prepares by providing flood fight training to many agencies. This year, 1,200 people will be trained at the end of the fall in flood fight methods. Our preparation includes having resources ready to go in the case of an emergency. These resources include sandbags, wooden stakes, plastic sheeting, etc., which are strategically pre-positioned throughout California for all the agencies if needed. In cooperation with the California Office of Emergency Services, CalOES, the Army Corps, California Conservation Corps, CAL FIRE, local flood control districts, and other agencies, DWR organizes every year flood preseason meetings. This year, in the month of September or October, 12 meetings have been scheduled throughout California. In September, we had 3 meetings in Southern California where 200 people attended, in comparison to only 50 from last year. So the message is being well received by the emergency responders to be trained before disaster strikes. Our outreach efforts include organizing the State Flood Preparedness Week every October, sending risk notifications letters, and work with other partners in the media in particular to alert the public of any flood emergencies before they happen, like the Flood Prepare California event in Los Angeles last week, where we encourage Southern Californians to be aware, be prepared, and take action against the threat of floods from El Nino. When funds are available, DWR administers the flood emergency response grants to help pay for projects such as flood safety plans, flood emergency response exercises, flood emergency alert system upgrades, equipment, radios, generators, and many other equipment that can help improve the incident command centers at the local level. Last but not least, DWR assists communities prepared to help communities to mitigate the effects of catastrophic floods through the National Flood Insurance Program. DWR is a state agency that assists FEMA, I said the F word, I'm sorry, administering the National Flood Insurance Program in California. We provide technical assistance to them in issues related to floodplain mapping, flood hazard determination, flood insurance, flood hazard plans, but mainly we help communities enforce the floodplain management ordinance through building codes, so they can issue building permits away from the special flood hazard areas. And if they do allow people to build in the special flood hazard areas, we want them to do it smarter, away from harm. If you would like to find more information about DWR programs, here are some of our links that you can visit. And with that, thank you to the committee for inviting me, and thank you for all of you for attending.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Once again, you can find that online if you wish to access that information. I had one particular question, and then what is the role of DWR, or is there a role in assisting local governments with land use planning to do general plans and minimizing potential impacts? Because as California grows out, hopefully we're doing more urban infill and sprawl. How can we make sure we're not allowing people to locate in areas that likely prone to flooding?
That's a very good question, Senator. After the 2007 legislation in Sacramento that affected the Central Valley, there were a few plans, there were a few conversations among the department to put out a guidelines, and we call them guidelines because it's up to the community, it's up to the local officials to administer the program, to administer their own zonings. As a result, flood became part of the building codes. Chapter 16 of the California Building Code addresses how to build in a floodplain in a responsible manner. By that, I mean adopts the National Flood Insurance regulations set forth by the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, 60.3. So the planning aspect of it is taken care of by the building code. And whenever we visit communities and local officials, we encourage to adopt stricter requirements in the special flood hazard area.
Thank you for that. As you can imagine, there's pressure lots of times on the legislature to try to weaken those, as a demand for housing and other kinds of things. In the San Fernando Valley, we have the Sepulveda Basin, which was really a flood basin, and people had tried to build out over years, and today it's a wonderful recreational element, but also serves as a flood basin. So I don't hear about that consistent pressure of building out in the Sepulveda Basin anymore like I did during the 50s and 60s. So maybe we're more knowledgeable about flood protection and not putting people in harm's way. So thank you very much for your presentation and your good work on behalf of the state of California. Now, our next two individuals will get down to really some more details of what's happening locally, because everything is locally, starting with our first speaker. We've heard from the federal government, we've heard from the state government, so let's hear from the local government. Next up is Gary Hildebrand, Deputy Director, LA County Department of Public Works, He's been a director with the LA County Department of Public Works Division for 30 years. He is responsible for the Water Resources Core Service area and has been involved in all aspects of flood control and stormwater management throughout his career. He manages the LA County Flood Control District and instrumental in issues related to stormwater quality, local water supply sustainability, and flood risk management. Sound like the right speaker for this hearing. Thank you for coming.
And thank you, Senator, for inviting us here. Appreciate being here and being able to inform all of you in the community as to the efforts that are underway by the Public Works at LA County to deal with our upcoming El Nino. And just first off, just a little background on the LA County Department of Public Works. We are one of the largest public works agencies in the country. And our public works functions are organized by core service area. And as Senator mentioned, I manage our water resources core service area. One of the special districts that's managed by the LA County Department of Public Works is the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. The district was created back in 1915 after some of the devastating flooding that Mr. Patzert had mentioned in his presentation. And the Flood Control District has two core missions as part of its activities. One is to provide flood protection to the greater LA area, but also to capture stormwater for reuse as part of our local water supply. This map here demonstrates the infrastructure that was built by the Flood Control District in cooperation with the Army Corps of Engineers. This system includes 480 miles of flood control channel that provides the backbone of flood protection within the region. We also have about 3,000 miles of underground storm drains that collect runoff from the local neighborhood level into the system. We also have 14 dams that span the San Gabriel Mountains that we use for flood management efforts. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, we also have 26 spreading grounds that we use to recharge our groundwater basins. In over 100 years, we're actually celebrating our 100th anniversary this year, the Flood Control District. We've learned a lot about flood management and flood control operations, and we've sort of modified and evolved how we operate over the years, and also been moving into more of a direction of providing a more sustainable water supply for the region, looking at how we can better utilize our flood control infrastructure to provide that sustainable supply, and how we can look at providing multiple benefits to the region with the infrastructure that we have. Oops. Does this thing have a difficulty? Okay, all right, go to the next one. Yeah. Okay. Well, when it comes to our flood protection efforts, the Flood Control District, protection of life and property is a top priority for the district and is a focus for our preparation for storm seasons and the threat of El Nino. Maintaining the integrity and operational effectiveness of the county's infrastructure, water, flood control systems, roads, is a year-round function. And the district is, well prepared to respond and recover from potential disaster, and our procedures have been sort of well tested over the years and many incidents that we've dealt with over the many years of our existence. We've gone through many El Ninos, as was pointed out by Mr. Patzert, and with these upcoming El Ninos, in addition to our annual storm season efforts for preparation within the county family, we do meet with our other county departments to plan and best coordinate response activities for the upcoming season, along with meeting with cities, state, and federal agencies to develop the contingency plans and have community outreach to assure that everyone is fully prepared and aware of the incidents. When it comes to our local flood control system protection, all of our dams are fully functional and ready to respond to the upcoming season. Our flood control channels have all been inspected and are prepared to accept runoff. For those of our flood control system where we have earthen bottom channels, we conduct vegetation management in those channels to assure that the channels are able to effectively carry flows during storm events. We realize that it's a balance between flood protection and the environmental benefits that this vegetation provides, and work very closely with resource agencies to develop a vegetation management plan that allows us to continue to provide flood protection and also recognize the habitat benefits that this vegetation provides. We have 82,000 catch basins countywide. All of those have been cleaned and ready for receipt of stormwater. We also have, as part of the coastal areas in the county, 46 pump stations, which are also ready for working this coming season. In the foothill areas, we have 172 debris basins, which capture storm runoff and debris flows from the San Gabriel Mountains and provide protection to those communities in the lower-lying areas. Those have also all been cleaned out and are ready to perform their function. Our spreading grounds are also ready and capable to provide a capture of stormwater for groundwater recharge. In terms of our pre-coordination efforts, we work very closely with the various resource agencies, the Corps of Engineers, the Weather Service, in terms of our pre-storm planning and during storm operations. As Rick Liefeld mentioned, the flood control system in LA County is sort of jointly operated between the Corps and the Flood Control District, and we work very closely with their operations folks during the course of events to ensure that we're very smoothly operating and have the system coordination wide managed very effectively. We also communicate very extensively with our local community and have many resources available for them to both keep aware of upcoming storm events and things that they can do to better prepare themselves. We provide sandbags to our communities at no cost, and we have information on our website where that's available. Downstream of the burn areas in the burn watersheds, we actually go out and provide free of charge engineering advice to those residents as to how they can best install temporary debris control measures to protect themselves during the upcoming season. We've had many community meetings for residents in burn areas and other areas where residents are interested in learning more about what can be done locally to protect themselves from upcoming storm events. And as mentioned by other speakers, the flood control system is designed to manage a certain level of risk. And we're assuring that our system is ready and capable, but there is the issue of our local residents being prepared and being able to have their local areas effective and ready to deal with storm events. Having residents assure that their rain gutters are functioning properly, that local drainage issues are looked at. The dealing of stormwater and risk is a shared effort, as was mentioned. And so we have a system that's there to collectively deal with storm events, but you can have issues develop where there are local needs that our residents can contribute to in ensuring that we're properly prepared. Storm events can occur that can provide localized flooding issues that was mentioned earlier that we need to work collectively with residents to be prepared. And so we have a lot of information on our website as to what residents can do to prepare themselves for those issues. Well, one of the things I also want to talk about is water supply. And there's been a lot of discussion during the course of the drought that with our imported water supplies threatened, that we need to look at being more locally sustainable in how we manage and use our water resources. 1/3 of our local water supply still comes from our local water resources, groundwater primarily. And the manner in which those groundwater basins are recharged are largely through the efforts that are done by the Flood Control District in conjunction with many of our local partners. Next slide. So basically, how do we go about recharging groundwater? Well, simply, during storm events, we use the flood control infrastructure that we've built over the years. Our dams capture stormwater during storm events from the mountain watersheds. Downstream of those dams, the watersheds that collect runoff into our flood control network, we then divert those stormwaters into our spreading basins, which then are used to infiltrate that water into the underlying groundwater basin. One of the things that the Flood Control District has recognized is as we planned and developed the flood control system over the many decades, we did realize that as urbanization occurs, and we talked about, I know Bill mentioned the paving over of our urban areas. Well, we need to be able to continue to recharge our groundwater basins. And so the flood control district, as part of the system planning efforts, developed facilities to be able to continue that effort to occur. Basically, siting spreading grounds to allow stormwater capture to continue to replenish our groundwater basins. I mentioned we have 14 dams that span the San Gabriel Mountains. Those operated both for flood protection and stormwater capture for groundwater recharge. They do provide our flood protection for the urban areas, and we do operate them in a way that we can capture stormwater in the more frequent routine events, use that for later release to our downstream groundwater basins, but then also operate them in larger events to provide the flood protection that's needed downstream. Our spreading grounds I talked about, we have 27 of those throughout the county. This is a typical spreading ground. They're basically just earthen basins that are constructed adjacent to our flood control channels. And during storms, we redirect that water out of our flood control channels into these spreading basins and allow that water to percolate into the ground. One of the innovative techniques we've utilized over the years to increase our ability to capture and replenish stormwater in our flood control channels that are earthen bottom. In this case here, this is a photo of the San Gabriel River, which is largely earthen bottom through its travel path through the San Gabriel Valley. We've actually installed rubber dams at strategic locations along the San Gabriel River to basically create additional spreading basins within the river itself to capture stormwater and infiltrate it in the ground. And with these rubber dams, we're able to operate the river system in a way that in the more frequent routine events, we can capture that water. If we have larger events, we need to provide flood protection to the region. We can lower those rubber dams and have the full flow carrying capability of the river system available to provide flood protection. Well, how well have we done over the years with our system? This chart here shows the level of stormwater capture that we've been able to achieve over the last 15 years. And there's actually, three colors on this chart. I'm just going to touch a bit on beyond stormwater. We actually do use recycled water and imported water for groundwater recharge. We work with local water agencies and sanitation agencies to use recycled wastewater for a recharge, and also imported water at times when it's been available to actually bank that in our groundwater basins for use in drier years such as now that we've been going through. But in terms of our success in stormwater capture, on average, we're able to capture around 200,000 acre feet of water a year. And 1 acre foot of water is enough to serve 8 people. But when you take a look at some of the wetter years and you look at the 04-05 storm season, which was one of the wettest in our history, we were actually able to capture over 600,000 acre feet of water with our facilities and put that in the ground. And to put that into perspective, that's the entire water supply need of the city of LA for a year. Now, one of the challenges we do face, and that was mentioned by the senator earlier, is sediment management. Our dams, our debris basins, their purpose is to capture sediment from the San Gabriel Mountains that surround the LA basin, capture that sediment and prevent it from causing flooding issues to the downstream community. But as part of that capture of sediment, we do have to remove it to be able to restore our ability to manage future storm events, both for flood protection and also for water supply. So we do have projects underway to remove sediment from our major reservoirs. I know Bill had talked about the station fire back in 2009. That was the largest single wildfire in LA County history. And we had a number of our dams took in a significant amount of sediment. So we're in the process of developing programs to remove that sediment and restore that capacity. Again, it's vitally needed, particularly now with our local water supply need, being able to restore that capacity to capture more stormwater for our water supply needs. To be able to increase our local stormwater capture efforts, the Flood Control District has had an ongoing program to expand the capability of our facilities to capture more stormwater. We've spent tens of millions of dollars over the last 10 years increasing the capacity of our spreading grounds, increasing the operational capability of our dams to capture more stormwater. And we continue to have projects in the works to further expand our capabilities to increase our local stormwater capture. One of the things we've undertaken is a study in cooperation with the Bureau of Reclamation to take a look at what is the impact of changing climate on the LA region. How is it going to affect our hydrology, and what do we need to do to better position ourselves to manage stormwater? And the key results of the study actually have shown that though the total amount of rainfall annually is not expected to change, we do expect to see less frequent, more intense storms. Also, we have taken a look at the overall water usage in the county and the different elements of the water supply portfolio, to take a look at how is that going to play out in the future in terms of being able to provide an adequate supply. And the Bureau of Reclamation, as part of this study, taking a look at the projected population increase and the water needs for that population, that yes, I think there is an adequate supply moving forward. When you look at all the different pieces that are going to be needed for that, not just stormwater, but recycled water, there's going to be always a need for imported water. Even if we increase our local stormwater capture efforts, that's still going to require a component from our imported water to fully meet our needs. So, if anything, this really validates the need that we need to invest in our infrastructure to be able to continue to better utilize and manage stormwater locally as part of our water resources. One of the ways we've done looking at how to better manage flood risk and stormwater capture for groundwater recharge is we've changed the way we go about planning projects in dealing with flood risk and stormwater capture. We've taken a more watershed approach and taken a look at our needs in the community. One of our first watershed management plans that we completed back in the early 2000s, we worked in the Sun Valley area, just a few miles to the east of here, and worked with the city of LA, tree people, other local stakeholders to take a look at the watershed needs and how we can provide the flood risk needed, protection needed in the watershed, but also capture that water for reuse. A different dynamic as opposed to in the past just constructing storm drainage infrastructure to collect that water and move it out of the watershed. We've, as part of this process, been able to identify about 15 projects that we will be implementing over the future years to capture and reuse water and deal with multiple benefits desired by the community. This is one of the first projects that came out of that study, our Sun Valley Park project. This is sort of a typical of the kind of projects you're going to be seeing coming across the LA region now to capture stormwater, reuse it, and deal with water quality issues. This is a project we built in a existing park in the Sun Valley area. We built a storm drain system to collect runoff from the surrounding community, brought it to this park, built some infiltration basins under the soccer fields in the park to basically infiltrate that water in the ground. It also provided some additional park amenities to increase park use for the neighborhood, and also dealt with stormwater quality issues. The prevailing approach to deal with stormwater quality now is looking at capturing water and infiltrating it into our groundwater basins. So that not only deals with increasing our supply, but also dealing with water quality issues that all the communities are struggling with on how to improve stormwater quality. Another project that is in the planning stage as part of our Sun Valley Watershed project is the Rory M. Shaw Wetlands Park. This is a 46-acre former inert construction debris landfill, which we purchased in cooperation with the city of LA. And this is going to be converted into a combination, flood control capture basin where we're going to be capturing runoff from around a 1 square mile area upstream, bring that water into this park, capture that water, run it through a wetland system, and use it for groundwater recharge in the basin. And as part of this project, we're also going to be creating 15 acres of additional park space in the community. The Sun Valley community is one of the most park-poor areas in LA County. So being able to provide these multiple benefits increases the viability and benefit that these type of projects can provide to the community. We talked a lot about...
And if that could be your last slide, that would be great.
Pardon me?
Are you about at the end of your presentation?
I'm at the end, just about.
Okay, very good.
And one of the other areas that we are looking at is beyond just regional infrastructure to capture stormwater for groundwater use. There's also a role for our community to participate in that, looking at on-site stormwater capture through use of cisterns, change in landscaping, and we are working with the City of LA along with Tree People on a pilot project to identify the appropriate means in terms of engaging our residents in being able to do stormwater capture on residential parcels and how best to involve them in the future. So we have that project underway. And just lastly, stormwater capture locally, there's a lot less energy used in capturing an acre foot of stormwater, as opposed to the efforts that are needed to import water from throughout the region. So looking at the energy savings, greenhouse gas savings, we're hoping in the future to be able to tap into some of the greenhouse gas reduction monies that are out there to be able to again fund our stormwater capture efforts. We looking for funding to be able to deal with some of these projects I mentioned and working with our regional partners in that regard. So anyway, in conclusion, just want to say that our county system is well prepared for flood management. We've done our preparations, working with the community on how best to involve them in flood risk management. We continue to invest in stormwater capture, and that needs to be an ongoing effort so you are ready in wet years when water is available. And none of those planning efforts are going to be successful unless we collaborate with our partner agencies in developing these programs. So thank you.
Thank you very much. LA County Public Works, under your leadership and others, have really embraced the concept of regional sustainability to the maximum extent possible, capturing and reusing stormwater as well as recycled water. So really appreciate that. And thank you for your focus on multi-benefits. I think the public enjoys that. One comment, one quick question, and then we'll be on our last speaker there. My comment is, you had made a comment on cap and trade funds, but anyway, it has to do with monies left over from mitigators, that we have to mitigate pollution of greenhouse gas emissions, which causes climate change. One way you can do that is by reducing the amount of energy used. You might not know that 20% of all the energy we use in our state is moving, treating, and heating water. So there could be a nexus. The challenge is, how do you develop the metrics to quantify the carbon reductions or the greenhouse gas emissions reductions in the carbon embeddedness of water supply and water transfer? Complicated, I know everyone's working on it, subject for another discussion, but it's a possibility, and so it's a priority in my office to see how we can look at water conservation by reducing importing of water and developing to the maximum extent possible a more sustainable regional water supply using a portion of those monies.
And we are having a study underway to better quantify those benefits, so it's clear that the level of energy and greenhouse gas reductions from stormwater capture.
We have
so
to,
we'll be
right, it's a
working
fee,
with you
so
on
we
that.
have to quantify it. There has to be a baseline. But my question is, how does LA County coordinate, for example, with Caltrans or the road departments? We know flood intensities can increase dramatically and catch motorists off guard, whether it's closing down Burbank Boulevard because it floods all the time when there's a heavy rain episode, it's the Sepulveda Basin. For those of us who use Topanga Canyon, Malibu Canyon, or Pacific Coast Highway on a regular basis, you never know when those may close. Other than a smart app, how do people navigate in a real-time measure ability to react and respond to those kind of road closures?
Well, on our website, we have a road closure information where we post roads that the county proposes to close on upcoming storm events or as roads are closed by the county during storm events.
Is that just county roads or could be city
Well, we
roads?
also have links to other websites from, say, the City of LA and others that have information on road closures. We have a sort of county coordinated effort which is our CARE website, and that's posted on our presentation, and we can provide information that we coordinate very well with the other response agencies in the county, whether it's Caltrans, the cities, and we have 85 cities in LA County. And so all of us have over the years, I think, developed a good communication network to be able to communicate with each other as to how to respond to incidents and how we message to our local communities. We have the ability for residents to sign up for text messages, email alerts on weather events and flooding. We also do press releases to the media, so over radio we're able to get information out. But we do work closely on a coordinated effort so we can be able to best disseminate information to the many county residents.
So public was interested, if they don't want a smart app, they could contact the Department of Public Works and be on the email alert in the event of road closures or whatever other areas of interest. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Well, our last speaker, we're going down even, breaking down even more locally. It's the city of Los Angeles. Is it James or Jim Featherstone?
Your pleasure, Senator.
Okay, that's the right answer. So in October 2007, James Featherstone was appointed General Manager of the City of Los Angeles Emergency Management Department. He's a native of Washington, D.C., and a veteran of the United States Navy. But what intrigued me about your background was your years of service to the City of Los Angeles as a member of the LA Fire Department.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect person in this job. So thank you for your attendance, and you're going to talk about what residents or businesses in Los Angeles should pay attention to during El Nino.
Thank you, Senator Pavley, for the opportunity to speak this morning. What we look at this as an opportunity. Baseman and Watkins wrote a book called Predictable Surprise a while ago, where organizations or entities knew that something bad was going to happen and didn't do anything about it. Several of the catastrophic disasters in the history of this country were truly predictable surprises. Our effort, certainly in the city of Los Angeles, is that this doesn't become a predictable surprise. That being said, with direction from Mayor Garcetti, my shop's job was to assess the risk, develop and disseminate relevant information for the community and for first responders and emergency supporters, and also spearhead the planning and coordination effort for the El Nino event. We actually have been looking for several years at the arc storm phenomenon, the atmospheric river. So a massive or catastrophic flooding was something that wasn't foreign to us. So a lot of the planning and efforts that we had put into arc storm, we actually shifted those over to what we would do for El Nino as the experts began to predict more certainty. And as you've heard the other gentleman on the panel say this morning, we look at it as a 95% chance that we will have a significant El Nino event with the impact for us being primarily November through February. Intensified rains, et cetera, et cetera. You've heard all that already. Just want to emphasize flooding is the costliest and deadliest natural disaster in this country year after year. Every state has a flooding risk. El Nino intensifies the risk for us here, especially in Southern California. Most Angelenos do not carry flood insurance. There's a lot of discussion relative to flood insurance that we can talk about, but I'll move right through what the city's doing. We're having regular meetings with all the different agencies. The gentleman on either side of me, Army Corps of Engineers and LA County Public Works, we've had significant work, interface and working with their staffs. And not just for wet issues, the Army Corps has come in and done the emergency facilities assessment on some of our key government facilities, so that in the event of a flood and we lose power, we know what the power needs will be. We work hand in glove with LA County Department of Public Works. Several of the catch basins in the city actually belong to the county, but the city's Department of Sanitation and the county Department of Public Works don't discriminate. They address whatever happens when it happens for the better good of the community. So our emergency operations plan, we actually have 12 annexes or appendices that have already been vetted, are up to date, that essentially will help us in the El Nino situation. Our adverse weather annex, urban flooding annex, debris flow annex, actually our tsunami annex speaks to inundation areas that are geographically susceptible to low-lying water. Our early warning annex, emergency public information annex, et cetera. Our process in the city will be 72 hours out, we get a notification from the National Weather Service shop up in Oxnard. We will go to level 1 of the Emergency Operations Center. And as the storm begins to get closer or begin to materialize in a much more substantive manner, then we will elevate the level of the city's Emergency Operations Center. We have an agreement with the county's Emergency Operations Center that when we go to level 2 or higher, they do a lack of a better term, a sympathetic activation so that they're in direct support of the city for anything that may have a significant impact on the city of Los Angeles. We will start November 9th. The city will start its messaging over time effort for public messaging regarding the El Nino event. And then 72, 48, and 24 hours out, we do what we call our just-in-time messaging, which is much more specific, much more forceful messaging in terms of what we need the community to do or not do relative to the potential impact of the El Nino event. Within 2 hours of us going to a level 2 or level 3 activation in our Emergency Operations Center, we actually assign a recovery officer. Too often recovery becomes an afterthought, or we do it after the quote-unquote response. We will start the recovery, or actually beginning to plan for recovery, almost immediately after we start the response in the city. Our priorities for the El Nino event, as in most significant incidents in the city, are first and foremost life safety, then incident stabilization, how do we stop the bleeding, so to speak, property preservation and the resumption of businesses and continuity of government services, and one that we were taking very much to heart these days is reduce the environmental impact of the crisis on the community. Something as simple as rain barrels. But that's one less barrel of water that gets into the street that may add to flooding. It's also one more barrel of water that will help us alleviate the drought situation we've been in for so many years. Homelessness is a significant issue for us in the city and the county regarding the El Nino issue. The police and fire departments in the city have actually gone out to geo-plot significant homeless encampments. Any encampment with 3 or more structures or shelters will be geo-coded, so we'll be able to look on a map and actually be able to see the location and intensity of homeless encampments. So they get special consideration because they don't necessarily have the state-of-the-art communications capability, and we may need to give them a little more help in the event of a El Nino crisis. We're also working with LA County Office of Emergency Management on the homeless issue and several of the local agencies in the city of LA. We've mapped the known flood vulnerabilities, the 100 and 500-year flood mapping information. We've also gone out, the Department of Sanitation has mapped historical flooded streets and intersections that they've had problems with. And the nexus there is that 48 to 24 hours out from a known significant rainstorm, we will actually postpone trash collection. Something as simple as the trash container sitting in the gutters. Gutters flood as they should, they're carrying the water off. Tip the trash container over, debris gets in the street, it clogs up the catch basin, clogs off the storm runoff system. So something as simple as a couple of garbage bags can cause flooding of an intersection, flooding of a neighborhood, the whole cascading event. So we're looking to take the most simple measures as we are the most complex measures. We will actually notify the neighborhoods. The city has its mass notification system, Notify LA, and it can be accessed at notifyla.org. We can actually notify one side of the street as opposed to the other side. So based on this flood mapping and the sanitation's waste collection routes, we'll actually be able to target specific neighborhoods and not send out the cry throughout the hillsides in LA, but actually very targeted messaging. Our most vulnerable communities, or MVCs. About 2, maybe 3 years ago, the Red Cross invested a lot of money and identified the 10 most vulnerable communities in the county of Los Angeles. 9 of those communities are within the city of Los Angeles. So we look at the MVCs. It would be Westlake, South LA, South Park, the Central.
That's not Westlake Village. It's
no, ma'am.
Westlake. I just wanted to for the audience here that may be from Westlake Village.
No, Central Alameda, Pico Union, Florence, Watts, Cudahy, which is actually in the county, and Boyle Heights and Koreatown. We use they use 8 criteria in terms of assigning vulnerability or risk to these communities. So we've actually used our flood mapping and overlaid these on the MVCs because they, in a similar fashion, the focus we're taking on the homeless population may need special consideration. One of the criteria there is language. So we have to make sure that our messaging to the community is put in languages. The other thing is dealing with the disabilities, access, and functional needs community. So we're looking at the whole of community in terms of the messaging we send out pre, trans, and post El Nino event. So we're leveraging social media. We're using the Nixle system to get our Notify LA information out. We're using @NotifyLA. And our big hit in terms of mass notification is the federal WEA or Wireless Emergency Alert System. All current generation mobile phone devices have that capability. The downside and the warning is that the individual can disable that. We ask the folks, our messaging is please do not disable the wireless emergency alert capability on your phone because it's how we send messages out by simply capturing cell towers. So you don't actually have to be registered with Alert LA County or Notify LA to actually get mass notification through the WEA system. The downside of that is it has a tendency to overpopulate, but in a crisis situation, we'd rather overwarn than underwarn. We're holding a series of workshops in the city. We held our first one for citywide departments on September 3rd, and we'll hold a series of workshops. November 5th, we're meeting with all of the operating agency public information officers and our county partners, the operating agency public information officers, so that we essentially have one message, many messengers. So we're developing collaborative and shareable speaking points. November 12th, we're reaching out to our community groups, NGOs, businesses, and our communities of faith. We have a very, very strong emergency preparedness community of faiths organization in the city. They meet quarterly, but we're going to have an extra meeting November 12th to actually bring in the communities of faith. We see the communities of faith as another conduit for the information, and also in times of crises, our houses of worship become congregate points for people who are in need or people who just want to be able to get together and mutually support each other. So we're doing a big push to leverage our communities of faith. We're doing an operational tabletop for the key operating agencies, the city and county agencies, police, fire, public works, et cetera. Community outreach, we're holding a series of 2-hour town hall meetings. The city, for disaster management purposes or public safety purposes, is quadrisected into 4 bureaus. Of course, the valley is its own bureau. So we'll be holding those town hall sessions. They will be televised on LA City Channel 35. They'll be repeated throughout the day and the days following. Those town hall meetings start on November 5th and will run all the way through the first week in December. Leveraging the social media, we'll hold Twitter town halls, one in early December. We'll invite reps from various agencies, so we'll actually leverage the social media to do the town halls and reach out to folks who won't be able to attend the big, large formatted town hall meetings in the 4 public safety bureaus. We have elninola.org. That's for information for the general public. That messaging will also have messaging in there related to the drought and what folks can do in El Nino preparation to also help us alleviate the drought, because as you've heard the experts say, we're not out of the drought. We won't be out of the drought, but we need to be conscious of what we can do to affect the drought, even though we may be up to our knees, so to speak, in rainwater at any given time. Our full El Nino website will be launched not later than December 1, and that'll have information. It'll be elninola.com, elninola.net, elnino.la will be set to redirect everyone to that site. We took a very serious and focused look at South Carolina when they were going through their recent issue. We took a lot of their messaging and a lot of things that they did in terms of how they They interacted with the community. So a lot of the sloganing, turn around, don't drown. And then you've seen, or earlier one of the slides talked about, they say it never rains in Southern California. So the folks in the comm shop have spun up a lot of messaging around catchy phrases such as that. Our challenges in the city is we're getting everything together, and we probably can move a lot more forcefully and quickly with GIS. The ability for us to share data on common GIS platforms is huge, and we're learning as we go. The good thing about it is that everybody's very collaborative. Everybody's very willing to share the data. So we're leveraging the technology. We're handling this a lot smarter and in a lot more contemporary fashion than we have in the past, and as we should. Continuity of operations planning for the city government's ability to move forward in the wake or during and in the wake of an El Nino event. We feel that every city department needs to upgrade and focus on their continuity of operations planning, because if the city government, the city entities haven't done their distillation of essential functions, looked at issues like if they have a facility or systems that are incapacitated, or more importantly, reduced staffing due to an El Nino event, that's very important. So each city department has been directed to develop their essential functions and also begin to look at 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50% staffing reductions due to folks' inability to actually get to work during an El Nino situation. What are we able to do? And let's start looking at those gaps and address them right now in a blue sky situation. Recovery. We haven't been through significant recovery certainly at the federal level in quite a while. So we're looking at what do we do with recovery? Something as simple as immediate shelter. How do we actually go through the disaster proclamation where the mayor proclaimed a local disaster or local emergency, move it to the county, move it to the state, and heaven forbid we actually move it to the federal level. We've asked departments to begin to document issues and concerns right now, because heaven forbid that we get in an El Nino situation that rises to the level of a Stafford Act declaration. Post-disaster housing. My job is to think about how bad it can be for the city. The mayor doesn't pay me to be an optimist in the sense of, things will get better. I'm paid to look at how bad can it really become, Jim. Post-disaster housing and the heaven forbid we begin to lose homes, we're looking at post-disaster housing. Army Corps worked with us this spring to actually look at vacant properties within the city and actually pre-survey them for water, power, security fencing, lighting, and actually street access. So they've already been pre-surveyed to actually, we could actually put trailers or tentage or some sort of temporary housing on these lots. So we were doing it, our maximum of maximums, of course, is always the earthquake, but the El Nino situation certainly rises to just probably a fraction of a less significant or severe situation. Admin and fiscal personnel in the city who have or have not been through the federal IAPA or individual assistance and public assistance process, the further we get away from a significant event, we begin to lose that subject matter expertise. So Cal OES is actually going to hold several workshops in the month of November where we'll actually begin to bring our admin and fiscal folks up to speed in terms of the IAPA process. A lot has changed in that process post-Sandy. A lot of lessons were learned post-Sandy. Sandy was a wet event. The El Nino will be a wet event, so we're looking at that. We're also working with our planning folks in terms of the new normal. A lot of the traditional perspectives in terms of recovery are, how do we get back to normal? But recovery from a catastrophic or disaster situation gives jurisdictions an opportunity quite often to, what's the new normal look like? So what's shovel ready that we can actually move into? Do we want to rebuild or reconstitute where we were, or do we need to rebuild and reconstitute where we need to be? I'm getting real close, Senator.
I'm practicing my former teacher's stare right now.
So we're updating our continuity of operations plans. We're encouraging all city employees to register for Notify LA for the mass notification. We also utilize Notify LA for department-specific recall. We're communicating our El Nino needs to all the departments and all the communities. We're reviewing our disaster service worker responsibilities. So government employees, if they aren't immediately involved in the response or recovery, they have a disaster service worker responsibility. So we've reminded all the agencies within the city of their employees' disaster service responsibilities. The city, of course, will be holding media briefings and press conferences. The launch of ElNinoLA.org. We're also put in place, already teed up, our places for giving, philanthropic giving, or giving of goods and services in the event of a catastrophe. There's a quote that we live forward but learn backwards. I was on the phone this Sunday morning with the emergency manager for Harris County, where Houston is. The city of LA is a part of the Big City Emergency Managers Group, which are the 15 most populous and at-risk jurisdictions in the nation. They're part of our information network. I can pick up the phone and call any of those 15 emergency managers and say, what are you doing about such and such? What lessons do we need to carry forward? So the networking is out there. Our integration with the county and with the Corps, one of the big force multipliers, I think, in the greater Los Angeles area is we all play really, really well in the same sandbox. And we've learned over time that one of us is nowhere near as strong as all of us. The FEMA Region 9 Administrator, Bob Fenton, was literally here yesterday in our office talking about El Nino, have constant conversations with Cal OES. So are we ready for El Nino? In my business, ready is dynamic. It's not an end state. If El Nino hit today, we would be ready for El Nino. Can we continue to be more ready for El Nino? We absolutely will continue to be more ready for El Nino.
Thank you for that, and that was part of my conclusion as well. I feel very comfortable and confident after hearing from all of you that you're paying attention. Preparedness is critically important in this. Educating our public is important as well. So please join me, everyone, in thanking our 5 panelists for their excellent presentation. I also wanted to acknowledge and thank, before we take public comments, the traveling team with the Senate Democratic Caucus who set up this room and coordinated all the equipment. Thank you very much for coming down from Sacramento. Appreciate it. And my own district staff. I suggested to Dennis O'Connor, who's the head of our policy committee on Senate Natural Resources and Water, why don't we do just a little informal discussion on El Nino down in my district? So he actually helped put this together along with Angie Dorr. So thank you very much for that. I think it was timely, couldn't be timely, and very warranted and very good information. All make for an excellent morning. Also wanted to acknowledge and just share with the public, in case there's follow-up questions, I have some members of my district staff here today. My office is actually in Calabasas, so not that far away, but if you'd raise your hands, Lauren Gallant, my district director, over there, Marie Lakin, all things media and communication, and Dusty Russell in the back of the room, who was taking, I think, having people sign in earlier on today. So we have 4 people. If you could limit your comment to either a question or a statement of about 1 minute each. I'm going to call your name. Where's the microphone? Right there. Okay, Felicia Bander, followed by Kathy. Cassie? Thank you. The third in line, Bob Brager. And last but not least, Tom Natchtraub. So 1 minute each, please. Question or a statement, your choice. Yeah, start with your name.
My name's Felicia Bander. I'm very concerned in us being able to capture and then reuse the water from this El Nino event. And my other concern is that I was listening to a water panel about a month ago about the LA River, and the environmentalists on the panel mentioned that The $1 billion revitalization of the LA River is more about real estate development and much less about LA managing its watershed. And that was extremely disturbing to me, and an opportunity that absolutely can't be missed by us.
Okay, thank you for that statement very much. And you might want to follow up with your LA County person on that, who's really invested in stormwater capture and reuse as part of the solution. Next up, is this Kathy? Yes?
I'm actually more concerned about the potential disaster. So
Okay,
in doing some of my
good.
research, some of which was repeated here today, which was great, I understand that Ballona Creek covers 125 square miles of the Los Angeles basin. My son works literally in a one-story office building that's right on Ballona Creek in Culver City. I'm nervous about him even going to work. So if we have 5 inches of rain, not even the disastrous 10 inches of rain, but if we have 5 inches of rain in one day, and we've got 125 square miles that's flowing into an 8-mile Ballona Creek, what happens?
I'll take that as a question with a brief response by, is it LA City or Jim, not James, but Jim, do you have a response? Is that part of your jurisdiction, City of LA or LA County?
Part of it, because the
Ballona.
marina is actually county, and then where it
You'll
traverses
personally
through.
send someone down for her son?
We will be there.
The Ballona Creek Channel, along with the other flood control channels that are part of the overall network in the county, are designed to manage a certain size storm event, generally what we call like our 100-year storm event. So they are able to provide that particular protection for that size of event. And we're confident that the system is ready to handle those large events. Now, you're always going to have a situation where you can have a localized event that can come in that is greater than the capability of the flood control system. And we saw that happen the other week in the Antelope Valley. I think the storm that hit the Antelope Valley that resulted in flooding in that area, roads being blocked, I think the Weather Service was calling that like a 1,000-year event. So there always is that possibility. That's why we look at being prepared as a shared responsibility between the agencies and residents, being aware of your potential flood risk and what you would do if there was flooding in your area. So it is sort of a combination of efforts.
Okay. Stay home was her suggestion. But Bob, come on forward.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Senator Pavley, for inviting us. What I basically want to say is I just want to make a comment that I'm the Public Works Director and the City Engineer and floodplain manager for the City of Malibu. And although we're a little small, sleepy town, we're 27 miles long. And every time events like this happen, especially El Nino, we get really pounded. And thank you, Dr. El Nino, for confirming that we are going to get pounded. But nonetheless, we are getting ready for this. And as a matter of fact, last week we did have a meeting with interagencies such as the county, the state parks, flood control, county flood control. As a matter of fact, we're having subsequent meetings next, as a matter of fact, tomorrow with flood control, and to discuss it in further. And what the message I want to get here is that we definitely want to be a part of this big organization and be prepared for this. And we've started preparing several months ago, and we definitely want to play in your proverbial sandbox. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Malibu, between fires and floods and everything else, and all the motorists and tourists that frequent that area have a lot on their hands. Tom, you're last up.
Yes, thank you. My name is Tom Knocktraub, and live in Chatsworth. My question is directed to LA County Flood Control. Can you evaluate for us the amount of risk at Devil's Gate Reservoir, which is, as we understand it, needs to be cleaned out, the sediment accumulation. It's a multi-year project that the county has approved, but I believe the whole thing is still on hold because of some legal challenges. Is that correct? Can you update us on that?
Okay, that sounds like a Gary question.
Yes, the Devil's Gate Dam is one of a number of dams that received significant sediment post-station fire in the storm events that occurred after that. It is one that we're watching closely. Though sediment did accumulate in the reservoir, it still has significant storage capacity available for this coming season. The project that you mentioned that we're working on, we did get approval from our Board of Supervisors last year on the preferred alternative for sediment removal at the reservoir. And over this past year, we've been working on finalizing our plans for the project, working with the various environmental permitting agencies to deal with the environmental restoration and mitigation aspects of it, working with the community on establishing the parameters for the project itself. We're actually looking at completing the process and being able to put the project out to bid and begin the clean-out work itself later on in 2016. For this season, we have done some preparatory work at the dam. We've done some smaller scale sediment removal to assure that the valves are all properly functioning. We have a very extensive network by which we monitor the condition of the dam and the condition of the watershed and downstream to be well aware of any potential risk of flooding. We feel the dam is still positioned to handle the upcoming storm events. And if there was any extremely severe event that would cause any issue, we already have a contingency plan in place working with the downstream communities as how to respond should there be any flooding issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. Excellent morning. And the last question on for the benefit of the audience. Many of us are homeowners or property owners in the greater LA or even Ventura County area. What are the one or two things that a homeowner maybe should be doing if they haven't thought of it in preparation for a rainstorm that will be coming? We don't know the intensity yet and the frequency of it. So what are some minor things we could do between now and El Nino?
Well, one of the things that we're continuing to tell the community, if you're prepared for the earthquake, you as an individual, you as a family will be prepared for pretty much any significant emergency, because preparedness starts with the individual, then it goes to the family, the neighborhood, et cetera. So individual preparedness, your ability to receive crisis information. So whether it's Alert LA County or Notify LA, if you sign up for those so you get timely information. The other thing is around the home, make sure your gutters are clear so that you don't, for flat roofs, you get flooding, possible roof collapse, so make sure your gutters are clear. You get the debris, just tree leaves, etc. The other thing is floating objects. Once the rains start, make sure you don't have toys or objects that will can float away, get in the runoff system and clog up the storm drains. And like I was saying, the thing that we learned from our sanitation department, if the gutters are flooding, don't put your trash containers in the gutter, because they float, they tip over. 2 feet of water can float an SUV. Turn around, don't drown. Don't drive into flooded areas. 6 inches of water can take an adult off their feet.
All right. Anyone else want to add to that list?
Yeah, I would like to add about flood insurance. Some people think they have flood insurance with their renter or homeowner's policy. That's generally not the case. But flood insurance is available through FEMA. It takes about a month to apply for it. Most people do not have it. And then the other thing I would emphasize is freeway behavior during floods. Tremendous amount of damage and mayhem occurs on freeways during flooding. And so you have to make the public aware of stay off the freeways, and there are a number of things that you definitely should not do. So those two things, most people, if they would pay attention, it would definitely diminish the impact of the El Nino.
Yeah, cleaning out gutters and culverts. It's a great family project. Gary, I had a question for you. I know LA County Fire Department has made sandbags available at fire stations in the city of Malibu. Is that something that's going to be done in fire departments all around Los Angeles, or just those prone areas
No,
that
that's a
are
good
most
question.
at risk?
We have, throughout the county, we have sandbags and sand available at various fire stations, including the city of LA, and so we're coordinating that effort. And on our website, we actually have a locator where a resident can go in, type in their address, and find the closest location where they can get sand and sandbags.
And it's usually limited to, I read 10 or something like that? Is
Well,
that-
yeah, depending on the circumstances, we have to limit the number of those. But because of El Nino, we have been stocking our fire stations with a much greater number of sandbags and sand. So we'll be able to provide, I think, an adequate supply this coming season.
Good to know. Again, please join me in thanking all 5 of these gentlemen who gave up their morning. Thank you to all of you attending, and be safe. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Hearings adjourned.